Hello, everybody. We've been away for a few weeks, but now that we're back, we thought we'd offer you a one-off special, and it's going to be about the subject of annuities. Before we get into it, Keith will read the disclaimer.
Everything discussed during the Portfolio Matters podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as investment advice. Listeners should be aware we'll be discussing securities that we own or have a financial interest in. Please do your own research or consult a professional investment advisor before making any decisions regarding topics mentioned on the show. Full disclaimer can be found at the end. Take it away, Stuart.
Right, so this show we're often talking about how to make money, but that's supposed to be in the context of a pension fund, and a pension fund is ultimately there to give you an income. So we're going to talk today about annuities, which is the traditional way of earning some income from one's pension fund. So what is an annuity? Well, an annuity is a financial product that provides you with a regular, guaranteed income during your retirement, i.e. from the day that you purchase it to the day that you die. It can be purchased with assets from your pension fund, and the income you receive from the annuity is subject to income tax. Annuities are sold by insurance companies, and different companies will offer different rates depending on their different assumptions, and we'll get into that. So if you're interested in an annuity, choose a reputable provider that does offer the highest rate. You don't have to accept a default as provided by your pension fund manager. So advantages and disadvantages of annuities. Well, they provide you with a guaranteed income for the remainder of your life, and indeed the remainder of your spouse's life if you opt for a certain type of annuity. And that can be incredibly, in a sense, relaxing. You know where you stand. The contrast, of course, is with managing your own money and taking income out of your pension fund, particularly if you're a DC pension fund holder. The income that the annuity provider will be able to give you is therefore very heavily based on what government bond yields are, and also, of course, depending on how old you are and how much longer you're likely to live. So it solves what you can call the room problem, the running out of money problem. If you're having to manage your DC pension fund, you don't know how long you need it. With an annuity, in a sense, that's taken care of. In my mind, I think of an annuity as sort of a bond yield, minus the operator's costs, plus how much longer you've got to live, getting that money back each year. So anyhow, if you buy an annuity, you gain financial certainty, but at the cost of likely lower returns. But there are numerous wrinkles because this is a financial product, therefore it is never straightforward, and we'll go into some of those. There are 5 different types of annuity. There's the lifetime annuity, a fixed term annuity, an enhanced annuity, an investment-linked annuity, and a purchased life annuity. And we'll go through each of those briefly now. So a lifetime annuity, this in a sense is the classic product. It's the one we're probably all most familiar with. It pays you a guaranteed income for the rest of your life. Now, they're typically available as fixed nominal payments, or as index-linked payments, or as rising nominal payments. So you might be able to get, $5,000 a year. You might be able to get $3,000 index-linked to inflation, or you might start at $4,000 going up at 3% a year. All of those are different types of annuity, which are fairly common in the market. However, when you buy one, the decision is irreversible. You can't change your mind later. You've given your money to the insurance company. They've invested it on certain assumptions. You can't get it back. You're done. So the total income you receive depends on your life expectancy. So you may receive an income less than you paid for the annuity. There's a lot of pooling of risk that's going on here. So if you buy an annuity and the life insurance company thinks that you're likely to last 20 years, they'll give you an interest rate or a monthly payment based on that assumption. If you die earlier, in a sense, you're getting bad value. If you die later, you're going to get more than your, in a sense, fair share. But that's the trade-off. You don't know. And hence why there is a benefit in the pooling of risk across a large portfolio of annuitants. So a lifetime annuity will expire worthless. It's not part of your inheritance assets. So, if you took out an annuity and unfortunately you died after 3 years, I mean, you've got terrible value. You only received income for a while and the lump sum has gone. It doesn't go to your whoever was in your will. Now, there are certain ways around that to mitigate that sort of disaster scenario, financial disaster scenario, but that's the main pattern of what a lifetime annuity is. A fixed term annuity is slightly different. It pays a guaranteed income for a set period of time between 1 and 40 years, though it's more usual to have it for 5 to 10 years. So in a sense, you're covering a specific time period. If, for instance, you retired at age 55 and you knew you were going to get another pension at age 65, you might have a 10-year gap that you want to, in a sense, plug. So that's a situation where something like a fixed term annuity might help you. So these are a rather different structure. As we say, it's a financial product, and therefore our financial services firms have added complexity to things. At the end of the fixed term, most annuities pay out a maturity amount. So this could be the initial value of the annuity plus investment growth minus the income that the product has paid to you. The maturity amount is set in the purchase agreement, so you know where you're going to be. So there's a trade-off here. You could choose to have a lower maturity amount paid out and a higher income, or vice versa. Now, if you died before the fixed term annuity ends, the maturity amount can usually be paid to the beneficiary that you've nominated, so it remains within your asset pot. So these fixed term annuities, they're a hybrid product. They're part of traditional annuity and they're partly an investment fund. And the investment element continues after your death. That bit doesn't get extinguished. It didn't go into the pooling of risk that a traditional annuity does. Enhanced annuities. So as we've been saying, your return on an annuity is really to do with bond yields plus, in a sense, the number of years you're expected to live and parceling out the capital sum over that expected time period. Now, of course, there will be many categories of people who do not expect to live their actuarially average life expectancy. So this could be people at risk of stroke or cancer, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. There are many conditions that would lead people to have a lower than expected life expectancy. And this, in a sense, can be a benefit, at least in a purely financial sense, in buying an enhanced annuity. Now, of course, there's a lot of risk of people gaming the system, and I think people did that when these first came out, claiming to be smokers when they weren't in fact smokers, because that was a very clear case where your life expectancy was lower. So a medical examination is typically required before the enhanced annuity would be offered.
Can I just come in there, Stuart, in that I certainly know of some of my father's friends who are heavy smokers, and they got enhanced annuities on the basis that they smoked 40 a day.
Yep.
And they had to commit to continuing smoking 40 a day in order to get the annuity.
Fantastic. And was someone sent round to just to monitor the ashtrays?
Well, frankly, I don't think it's going very well for the insurance company in this particular case, because this my father's friend has moved to the Philippines, married a younger Filipino woman, and has essentially disappeared. And so my father is trying to get hold of him, is no longer sure whether he's alive or dead. And so
the annuity is being paid, is it?
I assume the annuity is being paid to some address in the Philippines.
Splendid. Yeah. Okay, investment-linked annuities. Now, for over the past sort of 10 years or so, people have not liked fixed traditional annuities because bond yields were so low. Everyone thought that they could do better at the market, and by and large, they were probably right, particularly if they avoided the UK market. Anyhow, so there is a new category, investment-linked annuities. So this is a lifetime annuity, i.e. a traditional one, but part of your income is guaranteed, but part is linked to investment performance. So this is like a traditional straightforward fixed term annuity, but it's also partly an investment fund. So the annuity provides a guaranteed income, the investment fund provides an income that will fluctuate depending on investment performance. So you may do better, you may do worse. So it is, however, like a normal lifetime annuity in that it expires worthless on your death. So another hybrid product. And now the final category is a purchased life annuity. So in the previous categories, we've really been talking about an annuity that you would buy with the proceeds of your pension fund, be that a DB or a DC pension fund. Whereas this purchased life annuity is typically bought with money that's not in your pension fund. So, for example, a tax-free sum that you might happen to get from a pension fund, or an inheritance, but basically a block of money that you just choose independently to buy an annuity with. So it's the same options really as a pension annuity, but it is treated slightly differently for tax purposes, and that's why it's worth talking about. So in this case, each annuity payment includes a return of part of the sum invested, i.e. the capital, and partly your monthly payment will be interest. So no income tax is paid on the return of capital element, though tax is paid on the interest element. Now, if it is written on a capital protected basis, then it is guaranteed to pay out at least as much income before tax as the amount used to buy it. So any of the initial capital left when you die is paid as a lump sum to your beneficiaries. So this is quite a complex product in some respects, but worth thinking about. Now, this chart is really the reason that we're talking about this issue. This is an example of the annual income you would get from a traditional standard annuity since 2006. Now, this is based on if you had a fund of 100 grand, you're age 65, you weren't looking for any increase in the monthly or annual payment, and it's just based on one person, not on a couple. So in a sense, this is the most plain vanilla of annuity. And you can see that in about 2008, you could hope to get almost 8 grand a year on an annuity fund of 100,000. However, as interest rates fell, the amount that you would get fell correspondingly down to a trough of about 4,700, i.e. in that sense, a yield of just 4.7%. And that's a yield where you're not going to get the capital sum back. Now, of course, interest rates have risen very heavily over the past 18 months or so, and hence annuity rates have as well, such that now you're more likely to be able to get a quote of more like 7,100 pounds per year on a £100,000 fund. So annuity rates are up 50% from their lows. So I think it's worth thinking about annuities again in a way that it wasn't really over the past 5 to 10 years.
Well, it also adds that we are talking about annuities because we now have the option of buying an annuity, whereas prior to George Osborne's changes to the pensions regime, you had to buy an annuity when your DC pension crystallized, when you started to take it. And that trapped a lot of retirees into buying these annuities at very low rates at the very worst time. But now, and I think that gave annuities rather a bad name, but now yields have risen we're talking about them because actually they look like potentially a good investment again.
Very good point. Yes, yes. You now have a choice. That's absolutely vital. Yep. A few other considerations about annuities. Now, they're supposed to be gender neutral. Now, if I was an insurance company, I'd be a bit annoyed about that because you know a woman is going to live longer than a man. However, quotes have to be given on a gender neutral basis. So more likely to be a better deal for a woman than for a man, more likely to live longer. So as we keep emphasizing, buying an annuity provides guaranteed income. Now, a key issue, though, is that you don't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to put all of your DC pot into an annuity. You could put a certain proportion in. You could, for instance, decide, well, look, I know I'm going to be needing, £2,000 a month. I will commit that element of my DC pot that at least gives me £2,000 a month. And then I'll take a chance on the investment performance of the remainder. You don't have to do all or nothing. And the final point is to really think about using the taxable portion of a DC pot to buy an annuity. In a sense, there's no point taking the tax-free element of a DC pot and immediately putting it into an annuity, which is then going to be taxable. In a sense, you've thrown away a benefit that you previously had.
So can you just explain that, Stuart? Let's say my pension, I take my pension, and then you get 25% tax-free, and the other 75% is taxable. So what are the tax advantages of buying an annuity with that remainder?
Well, it's more that if you're going to buy an annuity, do it with the taxable portion, keep the tax-free portion growing in your DC pot, or if depending on the sizes, put it into an ISA or give it to your children if that's your intention of what to do with the money. So if you had a pension pot of 100 grand,
yeah,
you could take 25% of it tax-free.
Yeah.
Why use that 25 grand that's tax-free to then buy an annuity where the income will be taxed? Why not use the 75%, which was always going to be a taxed income, to use that to buy the taxed annuity?
Okay, got you.
Okay, now this table is worth spending a bit of time on if you're thinking about buying an annuity. It's an example, in this case from Hargreaves Lansdown, of different annuity rates in different contexts. So the different columns are different ages, and as you would expect, older people will get a higher income from a particular pension pot size because they've got less to live. And each row is a different context in the or different situation. The top line is a single life with a level payment, i.e. no increases, and no guarantee, i.e. you're not guaranteed to get even sort of 5 years of income from the pension, from the annuity. So this is the most plain vanilla. So if you're age 55, 100 grand pot would get you about 6,200 a year. At age 60, that would have gone up to about 6,700. At age 75, it's up to about 9,400. So that's a sort of straightforward case. There are other cases where the insurance company will give you a guarantee to pay the money at least for, say, 5 years, and you lose too much income to at least get that guarantee. However, if you start looking for more complex products, such as an income which increases with RPI, then your yield, as it were, drops pretty dramatically. So at age 55, instead of getting a level amount of 6,200 a year, you'd be getting only about 3,400. And there are variants on that to do with, say, fixed escalations rather than RPI escalations, which is a bit easier for an insurance company, less reliant on the index-linked gilt market. And there's a whole other category of annuity where you're buying it in the context of a marriage and you want to provide an income for your spouse after you die or after she dies. So there's a sort of joint life aspect to that. So it depends on your circumstance, what age you are, what sort of protections and what sort of growth you want. But I think that the key point is that given the bond yields have risen, now is a much more sensible time to be looking at the virtues of an annuity.
One point I'd make, Stuart, is just reiterate something you said earlier about choosing a high quality, reputable insurance company to provide your annuity, because life insurance fraud is as old as the industry. And anyone who's read Martin Chuzzlewit by Charles Dickens will know that the plot centers around an insurance company which is taking in lots of premiums and then has no intention of paying out the money. And, it's not worth the extra little bit going for some dodgy life insurance company. This is your retirement you're talking about. Go with a reputable provider.
Very good point. Absolutely. So in trying to sum up annuities, pros and cons. Well, the pro is, there's certainty of income. You know where you stand. That can be immensely, in a sense, relaxing. You know what you're going to be getting. And annuity rates are higher than they have been for many years. Previously, in a sense, it was a no-brainer, in the sense of let's definitely avoid them. Now it's a much more fine decision. It's a much more reasonable product to be looking at. Against annuities, it's lower income than may be available from a sound and prudent investment of your capital. And once bought, you cannot change your mind. You're locked in.
Great. Thanks, Stuart. What I'd say is that annuities are the safest product out there. And if you're not interested in managing your own portfolio, or you want to save your part of the portfolio from yourself, then I think it's a very good idea. But it comes at the cost in that they're very low return assets. And if you take out a lifetime annuity, you have nothing left at the end to pass on to your children. Anything else to add?
No, I think you've summed it up nicely. I like the idea of saving yourself from yourself. It's a good point.
Well, it's rather apt at the moment.
And on that note, it's goodbye from Keith Jordan.
And it's goodbye from Stuart Owen. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Full disclaimer. The material and information contained in this podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only, and should not be relied upon for making a business, legal, or any other decision. We may own or have a financial interest in any securities mentioned. Listeners should conduct their own research or consult a professional investment advisor before making any decisions regarding topics mentioned on the show. Whilst we endeavour to ensure that the information presented on the show is correct, we make no representations or warranties of any kind, express or implied, with respect to the podcast and website, or to any information, products, services or related graphics discussed or presented in the podcast or website. Any reliance you place on such material is strictly at your own risk. You are solely responsible for the investment decisions you make. We will not be responsible for any errors or omissions in the podcast or website, including in articles or postings, for hyperlinks embedded in messages, or for any results obtained from the use of such information. Nor will we be liable for any loss or damage, including consequential damages, if any, caused by a reader's reliance on any information provided by the podcast or website. Please do not listen to the podcast if you do not accept self-responsibility for your actions.